Hello, everybody, and welcome to ZTV Live. Today is Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020. I'm Susan Mulligan-Fleischman, and I'm pleased to let you know that tonight's show is sponsored in part by Murphy's Grand Irish Pub on King Street in Old Town Alexandria. Order online for curbside pickup or delivery. Zebra viewers get a 20% discount through May 31st. Check out Murphy's new mini market also, where you can get fresh meats and seafood, their famous shepherd's pie, and some of their delicious Bloody Mary mix. We're also sponsored by Dishes of India in the Bellevue Shopping Center in Alexandria, winner of the Zebra Reader's Choice Award for Best Indian Food. Check their website for daily specials at dishesofindia.com. Mention the Zebra ad for 15% off your order. And Mama's Kitchen and EVOO at Mama's Market on Fordson Road in Alexandria. A delicious menu of Mediterranean cuisine is available for curbside pickup and delivery. And EVOO at Mama's Market carries a wide variety of oils, vinegars, pastas, and much more. Zebra viewers get 15% off orders. Thank you very much to our wonderful sponsors. And now, just a few newsworthy items for today. Back in April, Virginia Senator Tim Kaine invited high school seniors to submit graduation speeches in his Everybody's the Graduation Speaker video contest. Now students and their families can watch seniors from all over Virginia opine on high school, college, life, the pandemic, and other issues of the day. Senator Kaine is posting select submissions on his Facebook page through the end of June. And last week, T.C. Williams graduating senior Matu Zalan was featured. In a moving 4-minute speech, Matu calls the class of 2020 the shining light to come out of this pandemic because they are anything but ordinary. Check out our interview with Matu on the Zebra website, thezebra.org. You can also see his great graduation speech there. Here at the Zebra, we've dedicated a page for our readers to take advantage of local deals and offers. You can find our Z Coupons page filled with entries that give you a percentage off orders at our local cafes, eateries, and other Alexandria retailers. This page gets updated frequently, so it's best to come back and see what's on offer every week or two. Don't miss out on offers right on your doorstep. If you're an Alexandria business and you want to promote your offer, consider running a Z Coupon with us by visiting the Z Coupons tab on our website, thezebra.org. Tonight, we're happy to have our book editor, Ralph Peluso, hosting his Reading, Writing, and Ralph segment. Ralph's guest tonight is Paige Etheridge, author of Cybernaut. Ralph, it's good to see you.
Hi, Susan. It's good to see you. Boy, time goes so quick. It's hard to believe it was just 2 weeks ago.
I know. It really has gone quickly. So it's great to see you, and I'm excited to meet Paige and hear all about her book. So I'll let you take it away.
Great. Paige Etheridge, who I know through our publisher, Solstice Publishing, is an energetic, bright young author, and she not only is writing science fiction, but a very specific genre of science fiction called cyberpunk, which is a little bit different. And it's very unique to hear her story and her inspiration, so I'd like to bring Paige on. Paige? Hi, Paige. How you doing? Good to see you again.
Okay, I'm great. How are you, Ralph?
I'm doing great. Every day's a holiday and every meal's a feast, I guess. So, good to see you. Good to see you. Well, welcome. And I enjoyed reading your book. It was fabulous, filled with a lot of things going on, but it really got pulled together very nicely. And but I want to read our viewers to know a little bit about you. So why don't you tell us your background, where you grew up, and things like that, and about your family.
Okay, so I grew up in Stony Brook, New York, and I lived on Long Island most of my life, and then I went to SUNY Purchase in upstate New York, in Purchase, New York, Westchester. I met my husband in 2012, and then we ended up moving to Brooklyn together and then came to Virginia together. And my mother is still an English teacher at Ward Melville, and my grandmother is still in Port Jefferson.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother was did a lot of successful has had a lot of success with the Jewels by Park Lane for a long time. So there's a lot of business, a lot of successful business and teaching the family. So yeah.
So tell the audience a little bit about your book, Cybernaut, and how you got the inspiration. And
So the inspiration, I actually came up with the concept back in 2010. So I was in this writing class for my writing program I was in, and the first story I wrote for the class went horribly. I tried to write a horror dog walking story. It did not go well. My teacher did not like it. She was very nice about telling me she didn't like it. And when it was time for me to write the next story, I had like this fragment of like a weird dream, and part of it was fueled by a breakup I was experiencing at the time and this weird dream about this weird place I'd had. And I just said, all right, I'm just going to draft this little piece quick, and, you know, I'm probably not going to do well in this class tonight, whatever. And my teacher actually ended up liking it, and a lot of the students were really into it too. And this was a very, very small version of the story. I expanded it after I finished my first book, which is Kissing Stars Over the Rising Sun. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of this idea of just nature retaking over after society has fallen, after there's been issues with war and drugs and illnesses and things like that, however you want to view it. And people basically rebuilding based on that, you know. So there's this drug that called MX that the government uses in order to try to boost the economy to make people more efficient. And people are given a stipend to try this drug. And the drug does work in making people more efficient. But the issue is that they become so tunnel visioned in their lives that they don't react on an emotional level anymore, and they don't really act as humans. And then there's a gang that comes about that actually will wear prosthetic skin that shows off different parts of their body, because there's your blood turns blue and certain parts of your body turn blue in response to the drug. But the problem is that prosthetic skin is going to get infected and kill you in real life and in the book. So these things are illegal to do, and people are getting sick, and it's illegal to do it, and then you have to take these other drugs to keep it from dying, and then people are getting addicted to that. So that's the starting point, you know. And Sky is basically in this gang, and Sky's
the main character.
Yeah, the main character. So she ends up joining this gang at 14 because she doesn't really feel like she has many options at that point. And what ends up happening with the rest of the book is just lots of craziness, you know, essentially. You know, she thinks she has to go back to the gang, and then it doesn't go as planned, and then she ends up in this totally different place than she ever expected, you know. So
yeah, there are a lot of elements to Sky. She goes through a lot of stuff, and
yeah.
But the one thing that struck me in our conversation about your work is where you drew from. Most fiction writers and most science fiction writers draw from the past, the great novels that were written, but you came at it from not only that, but a different place, the gaming space. So talk about that a little bit, because I found that just intriguing.
Well, what I love about gaming is that it's such a holistic experience. There's music, there's dialogue, there's the sound, there's the visual aspects. You can actually often feel vibrations in the consoles themselves. And then you also are just having the experience of connecting with actors you may or may not know. And it often brings a lot of people together. And a lot of people do have a lot more of an interesting experience consuming those kind of worlds, because it is more holistic and you can view it from different ways. So there's just something I really love about that whole big holistic experience. And the thing is that for a lot of people, it is easier to consume than books, because it's easier to just kind of jump in and out. Mm-hmm. And those worlds are just so vast and they're so intense.
Yeah,
well, that's true. Just so much drawn, you know? So.
And the gaming world fits into most of our audience probably doesn't know what cyberpunk means. I didn't know what cyberpunk meant.
Okay.
So why don't you explain cyberpunk? Because that's truly where the connection is between the games and that genre of science fiction.
Okay, so my book falls under the category of cyberpunk, and then it also fits into the subgenre of biopunk. So I'll start with cyberpunk. So cyberpunk, the easiest way to explain it, it's high technology, low lifestyle. So technology is vast and well onto doing all these crazy things that we can't even imagine right now, but people aren't living well. You know, either they've lost their connection to God or they've lost their connection to each other. They're not feeling very good about themselves. And, you know, that financially they're struggling. That generally tends to be a big theme. And biopunk is more a focus on the natural nature set, you know, more of like a nature setting in that world. And it brings nature setting back into cyberpunk because cyberpunk often is low nature as well, whereas biopunk brings it back in.
Right.
It's basically the best way I can explain it. So.
Yeah, it's very interesting stuff when you start looking at it in that context.
Yeah. If I need to clarify anything throughout this, let me know. So.
No, that's okay. And you know, generally when writers first start writing, and you're through 2 books, working on your third. Right?
Yeah. Well, my third's finished. I'm just
it is, yeah.
Getting it out.
But usually you start with a whole lot of yourself in book 1, and then you start to move away. So how much of you is in book 2 in Cybernaut?
I would say maybe more of the angsty teenagery side, but it still isn't entirely. You know what? Most of this character came from like this dream sense. I'm not even really sure fully where she's from, but like there's this angsty part of me that she definitely takes on. And I definitely felt a lot of connection to her from that. And then just the characters that we've discussed that I drew from as well, you know, so that we're going to discuss later in the interview that we discussed privately. So.
Mm-hmm. So now, in addition to Sky, whose original name was Kiara. Right?
Yes.
Right. There's other characters in there that are fascinating. And let's talk about a few of those. Okay. Azil, I think, right?
Yeah, his original.
Let's talk about Azil. Yeah.
So his original.
Tell the audience about him.
Okay. So there's been some Phils in my life who I was never close to and I was never romantically interested in, but I noticed that there were women that were like drawn to them, and I always kind of watched them from afar as interesting characters that people just felt this magnetic connection to. And Sky feels this magnetic connection to this character for, you know, technological reasons, because they both share the same, you know, implant situation. And I had noticed that kind of feel, and that's where that character really came from. Although later on, I realized I really needed to change the name. So I actually had readers vote on the name based on 5 different names. And my husband was adamant about it being Azale. He's like, "You're picking Azale. That is the right name. You're not going with this other one." And honestly, it ended up working out that the voting was even, and he had the final vote. So that ended up happening.
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody, I think, goes through life and they have that person they're drawn to, even though there may not be a romantic or a sexual connection, and it's somebody that's always there. And it's interesting how, you know, that comes about.
Yeah, it was just interesting to see, like I said, these other women who were like continuously drawn to these men despite their flaws and despite other things going on with them. And it was just really, I'm not saying there's good things about them too. I'm just saying, like, you know, it was interesting that they were being drawn in, and, you know, that electronic connection almost, you know. So.
Yeah. Now, but the next one would be Indigo.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the readers about Indigo.
So Indigo basically joins the military due to heartbreak. And in a strange way, he is becoming and struggling with the fact that he's going after, and thus also becoming what he was fighting against in the first place, which is the idea of thinking that Sky was killed and murdered by someone. And he basically is trying to strengthen himself to basically confront the killer one day. And he, in turn, is becoming this killer himself through what he has to do in war. And that's something that Skye does confront him about when he later finds out that she's actually been alive this whole time. She just ran off and faked her own death, essentially, to join the game. So, yeah, he's just somebody who I think women fantasize about having that romance for, you know, the man that's always going to love you no matter what. And that's what I found really interesting about him. But he's definitely coming from a more wholesome place. And he definitely is more open to working on himself and trying to do what he feels is righteous. And ultimately, he does go in a very righteous direction. So, despite like the situations that he's like facing.
Yeah. And how about Wolf?
Oh, Wolf. Yeah. So Wolf was actually in Skye's game, but Skye didn't really know her at the time. And Skye actually ends up meeting Wolf later when Skye is basically forced into this women's army and Infinity. So I believe the name was, there's little fact checks on my own book. And Wolf actually had joined that army as a way to escape the gang. And she became a tattoo artist. And since Skye was always an artist, she'd been doing all this graffiti tagging at the beginning of the book while she was with the gang. And it was an opportunity for her to channel her art in a new way and in a way that was serving the community in a beautiful way. Right. And it was a way to reconnect with someone that had been part of her past, but who she hadn't really interacted with. And they both were building something beautiful and creative together. And there's a scene where they're howling with wolves together. And that's how they really, you know, truly connect for the first time.
Well, so. The howling with wolves scene, I thought was one of the most emotionally drawing scenes in the book. And so is that what you wanted the readers to experience? And tell me about what they were feeling at the time and going through that. Because
have you personally howled with wolves before? Have you done it?
I'm sure I was drunk enough at some point to do howling at wolves.
So when I was really young, I was really far in upstate New York in Morristown, and I was with a friend of mine's mother at the time, and there were these wolves that started howling, and she started howling, and then they started howling back, and then I started howling, and then they started howling back to me, and it was this really beautiful experience that I was having. And that's really where that scene came from. It wasn't somebody who I knew very well, but and the wolves you don't see. They're far in the distance. They're in the woods. But you're having this really beautiful connection despite the fact that you don't share the same language. You don't share the same experience. And even with the other human there, you're also recognizing that you don't entirely understand their experience and you're not in their experience, but you're still having that unity and that sense of communication and that connection. And the idea was I wanted to show that despite that we're never going to be fully in someone's world or head, whether we share the same species or not, we can have that like sense of connection. And that's really what that was about.
Yeah, it's a terrific point in the book. Are there any other characters that of importance that you want to discuss with the audience tonight?
I actually drew Naomi and Wild Dog a lot from the Metal Gear Solid series, even though they're definitely not the same characters. And I just was interested in those archetypes for those particular characters, even though the relationship they have doesn't reflect what's actually in the games. It's a completely different situation. And then, that's like pretty much it. So
it's
there's other characters, but I'm fine ending that.
I think that those are pretty much the main ones. Now, there are a lot of themes in this book, and there's a lot going on towards the end of the book where a lot of it compresses and comes together. Yeah. And but one of the things I sensed was the transformation, particularly Kiera Skye went through a transformation. Yeah. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Skye starts off very much as a loner and doing what she feels like she needs to do to survive, even if it's not the most moral thing. But she still, even when she's after she joins the gang, she still feels a sense of isolation, especially after she's betrayed and basically, changed into a bioweapon against her will. That messed her up pretty badly. And she has these intense romantic connections that aren't healthy, that she'll, act upon even if it doesn't entirely feel right. And beyond that, she basically is with herself, with her art, connecting to the characters in her art that she creates. And that's about it. And then having memories of Indigo, who, you know, was a childhood friend who later comes back in her life, you know, through the, you know, finding her. And, well, she finds him actually and rescues him inadvertently. And
Yeah.
yeah, she was like, oh, is this bag full of a puppy? Is this a bag of puppies? And it's like, oh, no, it's a guy. Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
And he's from the army that's actually, like, looking to kill my gang. This is bad. So it's very much of a, you know, she goes from being this loner character who's very much looking to strike you and very much like protecting herself and not being very kind to you, to somebody who later on discovers she wants to be part of a community. She wants to be part of a group. She wants to believe in something, and ultimately is finally able to connect with love that actually is healthy and good for her, and able to connect with, you know, other creatures. I mean, she has there's the scenes that she has with the wolf howling, and then there's the the cyber orcas that she's dreaming about,
Yes.
that she feels the connection to, because, you know, they also are trying to figure out, like, how much, you know, where she's trying to figure out how much she's still human or cyborg and stuff like that. And when she's with the orcas, that's not even a question for them. They just are, you know.
Right.
So, and she later connects to them because there's that also telekinetic connection, and she eventually meets them in the book, and it's this idea of, you know, she's connecting to all these different individuals, and it's a, you know, and she's definitely a much nicer person, definitely a lot healthier, because she was quite underweight at the beginning of the book, and then by the end she's very muscular, much healthier, much better diet, because basically she goes from eating candy bars and whatever she can find, from breaking into things, to actually having like a fairly healthy diet too. So it just kind of shows, you know, how she's nourishing herself better as well.
I envisioned her as scrawny, but yeah, you know, she found romance, and she also came to grips with her own insecurities during that transformation. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, she was afraid of hurting people. That was a big one. She was also afraid that Indigo's love for her wasn't true, and that basically he was gonna, you know, screw her over like everyone else had. And again, Indigo was in a very awkward position that, you know, they'd actually captured. She'd rescued him. She ran away from him. The military basically captured her. And it was this really weird position because, you know, Sky at one point is like, you know, if they ask you to kill me, you're going to have to do it. Right. And, you know, there was that moment of like, you know, seeing where she could get screwed over by him. But you know, it works out, and they're able to, you know, basically be together, and she's able to like accept him into her heart, you know, and also she's able to, you know, believe in something, because, you know, she was afraid to believe in something, even though her art always reflected the desire to believe in things bigger than her, and she's able to accept that into her heart as well, even if it's not like the most considered traditional of beliefs. It's still a belief. And also her strength and her power to be able to do the right thing is another great thing, because before she's just like, oh, I'm just a screwed up, I'm nothing, nobody likes me, no one wants me, and then she's seeing like, no, I can do the right thing, and I can be of importance, you know, and I can be loved, you know, because a lot of people feel that they can't be, you know, and that's not true. So that's something she found for herself.
And I like the way you left the readers hanging and wanting for more in the graveyard scene.
Oh yeah.
And she painted, or on the gravestone, I guess it was, but you don't tell the reader. You don't tell the readers what she painted.
You can also view it as she defaced her own grave. I mean,
yeah,
you can view
I
it
know. I had to go back and reread that. I thought I missed it, but.
Yeah, you know, it feels like you do, because you know there's something there and you don't know what it is. And, you know, obviously the people in that world know, but you don't. And so as I mentioned before, she had been presumed dead. So what happened was the police of that world had basically put the fragment of her skull, which had been recreated, you know, taking her DNA. So, you know, people thought it was actually from her real skull, but it was actually a cell replication that had been done, you know, to make it look like she was dead. They buried that in the cemetery for missing people and people who couldn't be identified. But she knew where her grave was, and she basically, would visit it periodically. And at the end of the book, she basically defaces it in such a way that you don't know what she says, but people know she's alive.
Right.
And it just gives hope about, because missing person cases are something that really strikes my heart. And there are people that I do want to be found if injustice happens, but there's also people who left because they wanted to start over. And there's hope for those people too, that they did ultimately find happiness or a different life, even with what they left behind, and even if there was hurt along the way. So that's what that was about.
Is that the message you want the readers to take away from?
Well, there's a bunch, and obviously everyone's going to always have their own interpretation and take away different things. But the idea of that, like, nature's going to find a way and, things are going to be okay is the one big thing. Despite the changes that happen in the world, you can find a way. Personal development is important regardless of what's going on in the world. There's hope for missing persons cases is another big one. The importance of love and getting yourself to a point where you can accept love into your heart by getting to a better place with yourself. Technology's around. It's going to do weird things. We'll figure it out,
Right. Right.
And even if you do become a bioweapon against your will,
You can survive.
Ultimately, what you do with it is your choice. You don't have to be a weapon. You can be a protector, instead. And, whatever else you get from that, you play around with. So, yeah.
Great. Okay, so now we're going to get to the portion of the show where we interact with the viewers.
Mm-hmm.
We have two trivia questions tonight for the viewers. So the first person to type in the comment box the correct answer, and our producer has the correct answer, so they have to be accurate. Will receive an autographed copy of Paige's book.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got 6 characters, 3 from games and 3 from novels or movies.
Yeah.
And we'll want them to relate to Sky.
Yes.
And they may not relate, and you can say, I don't see the relation, or you can expand on the relation and see how it works. So we've got some very interesting stuff. So the first character comes from the movie The Alien, which was novelized by Alan Dean Foster. And the first trivia question is from The Alien. And the trivia question is, what was the tagline for the movie The Alien? So viewers, type it in and have fun. So Ripley and Sky.
They're both very experienced with being women in men's worlds and navigating through it anyway. And being survivors despite that too, and making basically being the final survivor as well in those situations when you think about it. So that's the biggest connection I can really see between them. They fight their way through and make it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Ripley is an interesting character because after the first Alien, by I think the 3rd or 4th series, she actually becomes one of the creatures and has to fight against that. So she goes through a transformation herself. So a little bit of transformation, very strong character.
Doesn't she give birth to one too in a way, or there's like a DNA connection?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that complicates things even further.
Exactly right. Yeah. So she had a complicated life. She went from simple second to the commander, and then she took over and dominated. So a very interesting character, Ripley.
They also survived complete chaos as well.
That's right. And, as it turns out, it was directed by Earth to bring back. So that's what led to the whole fiasco. Mm-hmm. Second character that we'll talk about is from Tomb Raider. And it's written by David Stern. And, of course, everybody remembers Angelina Jolie as Lara Croft. So Lara Croft and Sky.
I see more of they're very good at finding things in weird places. that's something that they're both very much of investigators in that way. What connection do you see with them?
Well, again, I think Croft's training was so advanced that she was, in essence, a weapon by herself.
Yeah,
right?
she was.
And if you remember the flashbacks from the original movie back to the time she was with her dad, she went from traumatic events to being a very strong character.
Mm-hmm.
So that's her. And it's tough to get. We're seeing more and more strong female leads in the sci-fi arena. You've got characters that come out of the DC comic books and Marvel, such as Jessica Jones, that are being developed by some of the networks. Like my favorite is Winona Earp. I was going to say Winona Ryder, but Winona Earp, who's battling vampires and the like.
Yeah.
So you're beginning to see strong females evolve in that area. So when I read your work, I try to pull on strong characters that I can. Strong female characters. The third character is Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn.
So they both, I see more as this is who Skye becomes. She becomes more like Aloy in that she's serving these tribes and she's serving these people after being trained. The world fits more because it's a high-tech, high-nature setting. And the spiritual beliefs are similar to the ones in my book. And Aloy has to do so much by herself. And she is basically fighting as well, to serve other people. And again, that's very much the connection to Skye is that, she becomes more of someone who is fighting to serve others in this type of setting and world, And they're both they're both loners too that end up serving despite that. So.
Yeah, I think that's where you drew a lot from, and that's a war game, right?
Well, the game came out. I actually didn't play the game until quite a while later. It was just more of I saw the connection later. It's I would say it's more of like a cyberpunk bio game that is, I think it's more of like an action adventure game than a war game. I mean, she does like a lot of fighting of creatures, so maybe you can view it that way. I mean, things are open to interpretation.
I'm not a big gamer, so
it's okay. No, it's fine.
Outside my space, and I think that's what I find where the audience out there, with the folks, your generation and our generation, that's why I want to draw from you that connection from the gaming because it's fascinating. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's definitely interesting because, like I said, it's such an immersive world, with so much going on.
The next one is Miranda from Steel Harbinger.
Okay, so this is a very, very old shooter game. And the connection that these two characters have is both are changed in labs against their will quite suddenly and become bioweapons, Miranda and Skye. So Miranda's situation is she ends up getting attacked in the lab and turned into a half-human, half-alien weapon, and Skye's situation is more cybernetic into her DNA. And despite being weapons, they choose to serve humanity instead, which is, even though they both had the potential for such evil and, they both were in that position of choosing evil and chose to go the other way, which is also pretty cool.
Yeah. There's obviously a big connection there between her and Kiara.
Yeah, I would say that's probably where I got a lot of the character, was from Miranda. So.
From Miranda.
Yeah, Miranda also, I relate to her too, because there's this point before she gets transformed and you see her with lab rats, and she's like, why are they doing those things to the rats? And I pet rats now, so I can totally relate.
How many rats do you have?
I have 2.
2, okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to collect them, by any means. I'm very happy with Ziggy and Zoe. So.
So you're going to stop at 2?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen other people collect rats, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Now, the next one we talked about and I knew I had heard the character and the title of the movie before, but then you cautioned me when you said you have to see the original, because I relate Ghost in the Shell to of course, the Scarlett Johansson version.
Oh yeah.
But I did go back today and watch the original version.
Yeah, the original.
So tell us about Major, which was the Scarlett Johansson character in the remake, and Kiara, that connection.
Oh, are you talking about the remake? Because I didn't see the remake. I've seen the original.
No, well, no. Go back to the original.
Okay.
Don't talk about the remake. Go back to the original.
So, both deal with the philosophical questions of how human am I, how human am I not. Both have this strong desire just to disappear and escape and go missing. Both of them did go missing and basically peace out. They're basically both pensive characters thinking about their situations a lot, and they ask a lot of the same questions. They both also find comfort in water. That's another connection they have. Sky finds a lot of comfort in being in water and being around water. And so does Major. That's often the place where she feels like the sense of hope and peace, and Sky very much connects to that as well. So that's another really strong connection that they have. And they're also women again in men's worlds, kicking ass. So
both women.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But and the last character I have a trivia question to go along with it. Is character. There's so many female strong characters in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
It was not tough to pick the one that I thought aligned with Sky the best. But the trivia question that we have for Game of Thrones is, what character appeared in the most episodes, and how many episodes did they appear in? So the character that I think aligned very closely to Sky was Arya.
Yes.
And I think we've got a picture of Arya when she's very young. I don't know if our producer's shown that yet. And then we've got a picture of Arya when she's mature and a warrior. And there's, no pun intended, there's a stark difference.
Yeah, and it's definitely similar to what Kiara to Sky goes to in her transition. And also it's another situation of, final survivor who goes off into this, basically a better, more hopeful future. And, despite all the chaos and everything that's happened, they make it,
Right. But she was, she always was feisty, but she was scrawny.
Yeah.
And she went through a center transition. And then she was absolutely cutthroat towards the end.
Oh yeah. Whereas I feel like, and again, it's just that idea of even just watching their, their progresses with their, physical selves as a reflection of, who they turn into as well,
Yeah. And even towards the end of Game of Thrones, she had to have a physical, emotional connection with someone.
Yes.
And as did your character. So I saw a lot of alignment there between them.
Yeah, totally, 100%. So.
Great. Let's see. I'm just checking to see if we have any winners yet.
Yeah, the military in Cybernaut is actually called the Jackals. So I finally remembered that. I actually had forgotten. I was like, what were they again? Yeah, the one thing I forgot to mention about Wild Dog's characters, the reason he had gotten his name, he's the lead of this the Jackal military, and the reason he had gotten his name is that he had basically fought against and befriended this group of wild dogs, and African wild dogs are very different than the canines people are used to dealing with. Wild dogs are terrifying. I don't know if you've seen them or videos of them. So that was definitely
Kelly McConaughey identified the correct tagline for Aliens.
Oh, yay!
The alien, actually. It's no one can hear you scream in space. In space, no one can hear you scream.
Which is terrifying.
I missed that second one. And second winner was, you flashed it up like I missed it. And it was 67 episodes. Mm-hmm. And it was Tyrion Lannister, and it was Rebecca Downs.
Oh, congratulations. Good job.
Congratulations to our two winners. And please type in your address in the comment box so the producer can get it, David, and we can get them over to Paige, and she can get the books out to you. Paige, what's next?
So I finished this book about pink were-dolphins, which is based on the myth in the Amazon River Basin of the Boto Encantado, based on the Amazon River dolphins. So that's a sci-fi fantasy-ish book, and that's actually a book that deals more with a character overcoming their anxiety, which also reflects on the anxieties that are pushed on the mythos of these dolphins, because basically the people of the Amazon River Basin, a lot of the stories and mythos surrounding these dolphins are basically reflections of these anxieties that they're suffering from. Dealing with sexuality, dealing with people that go missing, sudden deaths, sudden weather changes are basically pushed on these dolphins. And the idea is that these dolphins are able to do things that they can't, but they're also feared and they're very much inaccessible. And even scientifically, scientists are struggling to find out more information about these dolphins because they're so mysterious. It's actually even debated if they're endangered because they're so hard to find. And the idea of this character turning into a pink were-dolphin herself and thus also overcoming her anxieties and basically confronting and, taking those anxieties into herself to become like a stronger person is basically like the shortest version, I can say.
Right.
So. And then I have been dreaming about this woman from India who's waiting for me on the border of Pakistan. So I know that's my fourth book. I still don't really know what that's about, but she commanded, I had an idea where I was going to go after I finished the dolphin book, and I suddenly dreamed of this woman and who said that, basically told me, this is the book that you're writing when you're done with this book. And it was a command, and also I keep dreaming about her. She's been haunting me, and I still don't know who she is.
Well, you'll figure it out. You'll make a great book out of it, I'm certain.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
Well, great. It's been a pleasure having you on, and
thank you.
I want to thank all of our viewers from wherever you are, and our friends from Solstice who've joined in, and our friends and family who've joined in. It's been an entertaining evening. Thank you for joining us. It was great. And I'm glad everybody's gotten to know more about you and your books. They're just wonderful.
Yeah. And thank you so much for navigating me through this, Ralph, because this is the first time I've ever done anything like this.
You're fabulous.
So, and thank you to everyone. Little heart. I've been doing this a lot recently. Like the little heart emoji thing with my hands.
Great. I can't do that. I'll get back.
It's okay.
All right.
Okay, great. Ralph, thank you so much. I was just practicing my hand heart.
Your heart? I don't want to do
too well
it
either. My daughters can do it beautifully. I have a little clumsy still. So, Paige, what a wonderful interview. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Ralph, thank you again for always finding these wonderful books and editors to review for the Zebra.
There's so much talent out there. It's amazing. And
there really is, and we're just so lucky that they want to come on and chat with you about it all. So it's just really a pleasure to hear. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. Great.
Sure.
Nice. Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. It means a lot to me. So thank you.
Sure. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us tonight on ZTV Live. Please tune in tomorrow night. I have a special guest. Deirdre Taylor, an Alexandria resident. She's a registered nurse who felt the calling to go up to New York City and help with the nursing shortage and critical care shortage that they had in New York City during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic in early April. And she left her family for 2 months and went up and worked in New York. And it was a life-changing experience for her. And she had one particularly newsworthy event that happened to her that I hope you'll tune in tomorrow night. It's sure to be a really interesting interview. I'm really looking forward to talking to her. And I think Thursday night we have Sharif El-Sheikh and Casey Hogan, two guys that Sharif El-Sheikh has started an organization called Toast and Taste, and they do meal delivery services, and a lot of restaurants in Alexandria are involved, and it's a wonderful program of giving back, and I hope that you'll tune in Thursday night and hear what they have to say about their program. So that's it for tonight. Thank you again for watching ZTV Live, and remember to be good news in someone's life.